The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business, from $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters at Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. We have a very special guest for you today from the San Francisco Bay Area, Arjun Dhingra. He is a mortgage lender out of the San Francisco Bay Area and loves to help people find and get a quality mortgage for their home. Arjun, how are you?
I'm good, brother. It's nice to be here with you today, Tim.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you got quite a story to tell, and I'm really excited to hear it. I've heard it already, but I think my listeners, are due a good story. So tell me, how did you get started in the mortgage industry, and how did you get to where you are now?
Well, it was, no one sets out to get into mortgages, so everyone falls into it by accident, right?
Right.
And mine is certainly no different than that. I was a senior in college living in a fraternity house in Reno. And I had some buddies who had dropped out of school, had started doing loans as mortgage brokers. And I thought these guys were dealing drugs. They were making so much money. And I just said, well, how can I help or whatever? And they said, look, we need someone in Reno to run around to people's clients' houses and get them to hand sign their applications, because again, this was 2001.
Yeah.
So this was when everybody actually had to write out their applications. Nothing was digital at all.
Right.
And so that's what I did, and they paid me per household, and that instantly made me a 1%er in college, in terms of an income guy. And it was a fun, quick lifestyle there for a couple of months. Then I said, look, how do I do what you guys are doing in terms of running a branch? So myself, another fraternity brother, and my brother opened up an office and ran a call center while still in school. And then we were so excited about it because it was our business and like our little baby. So we'd hit the classes that we needed to at school on campus, because we were all trying to graduate. We were kind of in that final throw there, and then race down to the office by 4 or 5 o'clock to meet the teams there, and have everyone hit the phones and stay there till midnight, and then do it all over again the next day. So it was a lot of fun, crazy times, obviously explosive growth during those early 2000s, heading all the way into the crash, which, we were part of, stayed in the industry, even though it was pretty dark and gloomy for some time. Yeah. And then came out of it and, really over the last 5 or 6 years have focused heavily on content creation and having an online presence as a way to differentiate from people I compete with, but also just to be seen as a thought leader and someone that could share ideas and stories and do's and don'ts and advice and guidance, because I felt like that was the thing that was missing leading up to the last crash. And so I wanted to make sure that everything I did was going to be, very strongly as an advocate for the consumer, and in that, on that side of the equation. So now I'm just focused on giving away a lot of value, a ton of education, again, leveraging social media to do this. It's made the job a lot more interesting and fun and worthwhile. And it's helping me make a lot of interesting connections, much like, connecting with you here, Tim. So yeah. That's kind of the story and where we're at, but been in the Bay Area now for about 17 years of my 21-year career, and working with people here in California, even through the pandemic with the exodus, because that was real. Sometimes the media tried to tell you, well, there wasn't many people were leaving. They went to your state. Yeah. I mean, they were going your way out there in Florida. They were going to other states for, a little bit more open space and maybe a little more freedom, whatever it might have been. So yeah, that's it. It was a busy time.
Yeah, definitely a busy time. Now you're being a little shy. I know this because you have a little story to tell about a side project that you happen to be running, which is your Taekwondo affiliation here. That's a big event. You coach the American team, correct? And you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
A little bit? I mean, I've been doing, man.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I've been in martial arts since I was a kid, since I was 8. I got bullied as a kid and then got into it. And it's been a huge part of my life. And so I competed internationally for the US team from 2007 to 2014 and was fortunate to win 2 world championships. And during that time span, and then I kind of retired. I had a dream ending as an athlete and retired, with a win and a gold medal. And then that was it. I was done. But then since that time, I've been the co-head coach for Team USA, my other coaching counterparts up in Alaska. And so every 3 years we have the world championships and we gear our guys up. In fact, we just got back from Amsterdam this last July with our team that went there and competed and did very well in the world championships. But yeah, I found, being a coach and being a mortgage advisor are very much the same. They're not too different a role. So they kind of interweave, and a lot of my content creation kind of speaks from both sides, from both of those passions, I guess, or both of those halves of my heart. And, I'm trying to basically get somebody from here to here, whether it's from athlete to champion or from renter to owner, saver to investor, and help them just, focus on creating a process and getting there with a plan and the right guidance. And it's really no different between the two. So that's my background in martial arts.
I love it, man. That's fantastic. Great story. And I agree with you 100%. The corollaries between coaching and what you do now. That's great. So, we talked about how you got started. Let's talk about today. So we got a little, we talked about this a little bit before the show, but we've got a little rock and roll going on in the markets overall, in the real estate market. And then obviously with interest rates, the Fed seems to want to get together every weekend and have a slumber party and talk about things. And now I hear, I've been in financial services since 1992 when I used to wrap REITs and sell those. But now it's like, I think now they're going to probably have to ease back in December. And it's like, who's giving you this information? It's like, where does this come from? That's not the Fed saying that. That's just yokels on television. But my question to you is, what's, ear to the ground, how are you guys feeling about things, and any prognostication on kind of where we're going and what's going on, or does that even matter?
I mean, it does and it doesn't. And I'm glad you and I had a chance to kind of cut that up, because at the end of the day, we have to recognize, no matter what, and this is, when we're watching and reading and absorbing the news and information, and then all of us as everyday working, citizens, Americans, we're kind of on Main Street. But there's always been, and there will continue to be, this massive disconnect between bureaucrats and people at the high level and the common person. And there seems to be a lag, it's a lag effect. Like, we feel it, right? Like, it's been no secret about inflation. It only became a household term in the last 8 months. But the reality was, if you were paying attention, you and I touched on this, right? There's been a massive run up in real estate over the last 3 years. That's inflationary. That's inflation. When prices escalate a little quick, that is inflation. There's been food inflation in the United States for a long time, but no one's really paid attention to it. Grocery bills were going up, kind of incrementally over the last few years.
Right.
We've had that, people were talking about. So it's not deemed as inflationary until it is. And the Fed, for everything that they do, and people are being critical of them, and I think rightfully so to some extent, that they were very late to react to this.
Yes.
Mortgage rates being kept artificially low during the pandemic, which was, in hindsight, wasn't necessary because the market was quite active. It didn't need to be so low. And especially for that particular sector, it was very stimulative on its own. It was doing just fine. People were moving for other motivations. They weren't moving because of rates. They were moving because they wanted more space. They were moving because they wanted to live in a different state. They were moving because they needed, just a change of lifestyle, whatever it might be. It wasn't because it was rate motivated. So, Fed's taking a little bit of heat for that, for keeping them so artificially low for so long. Now people feel like they missed out when really they're comparing against something that was a bit of a fugazi, right? Like, it was almost fake. Those weren't real rates. And now we're in this current market where the Fed has aggressively tried to raise rates to fight inflation, mortgage rates and inflation. Everyone needs to understand here that listens, and I'm sure most of the audience does, because you always put out great information and you got great people on here. Mortgage rates and inflation go the exact same direction. Everyone needs to know that. So when inflation's running hot, mortgage rates are hot. When inflation cools off, which eventually it will, it's not going to stay high forever, but when it eventually does, then mortgage rates will cool off. So it's really a cyclical thing. So point of all, everything I'm saying here is that it's not something to fixate on. The media and most people, just because it's really good clickbait and it's an easy story, would like you to think that the mortgage rates themselves are the single biggest driver of a buyer's decision or the reason where everything starts. When in reality, it doesn't matter what the rate is. If you need to move into a certain area because your kid needs to get into this school, you're not thinking, well, shoot, where are rates at? Should we even do this? No, it's we got to do this because our kid needs to get into the school. Right. So our motivations are very personal and specific, but they're not rate binding. And I think for the majority of Americans, I'm not discounting the fact that rates hurt affordability. So I don't want anyone to mishear that. I'm very sensitive to that. I have a number of clients that are kind of stuck for the moment, but prices will eventually adjust and then that'll even out. But for the majority of Americans, the decision to move or take action in real estate is always personally motivated. It's not interest rate motivated. So rates are temporary. They go up, they go down. Nobody holds a mortgage long enough to ever truly realize whether it was a good rate or a bad rate anyways. They end up refinancing in a couple of years. Those truth in lending statements that people look at that show, well, you're going to pay X amount in interest over 30 years. And people get shocked and say, my God, I need to find a cheaper. Don't worry about it because you're not even going to keep that thing for a fraction as long as it says it anyway. So point is, everyone focus on the opportunity, which there are plenty of right now in the country, whether you're an investor or someone who's looking to move because you've got less competition, you've got some prices coming down to earth. It's actually a very opportunistic time. But focus on opportunities, focus on personal motivations, and try and block out that noise of negativity saying that just because rates are up, this is a terrible market. Everyone needs to remember, we just left the terrible market. There was nothing normal about what happened over the last few years. We're now entering what is called a normalizing market, and that's a good thing.
I agree, and thanks for saying that. I love it because you said something inside of there, and that was, I think, very poignant. And it was, we have to start looking for opportunities. I'll agree with you. The past couple of years, it's just been just buy whatever. Hey, that looks great. 17 people in line to go to the open house, and everybody puts a bid in. That's not normal.
Yeah.
That's never been normal. Maybe a caveman
No.
at one point had one cave and there were 17 families standing around wanting to live in it. But hey, look around. There's plenty out there, So yeah, do our due diligence, right? And if the home price is cut back, there's a lot more inventory for you to choose from. How about that? So good stuff. I love it. I really do. I really love it. So what has been your biggest apparatus to find new clients? Obviously, you've got a great story. You seem like a great guy. You're probably out there, meeting lots of people, doing things like this. How are you finding clients in the Bay Area?
It's honestly, it is all, almost predominantly now through social media. I spent the last 4.5, almost 5 years being very committed to forging a personal brand and making sure my voice is out there. And people say, well, I don't know if that stuff works. Look, I think everyone that's a real estate professional needs to recognize that there is a race to the consumer. Between us as individuals, whether you're a real estate agent, a mortgage broker, a private banker, whatever you are, all of us, and fintech. Fintech is racing to get into these devices and get into these headspaces, right? And they're backed by billions of dollars. We just have these, but we've got our brains and we've got our voices. And if we can make them heard, that is the way to level the playing field and actually compete. So if you don't have an online presence, if you don't exert your relevance somehow, you'll get pushed to a place of irrelevance. And I recognize that fairly early on in this process of kind of diving into being more of a content creator and sharing things, sharing stories, sharing strategies, sharing advice, offering guidance, not selling. Okay. I'm not advocating for that because that doesn't work. It won't work. You'll just get drowned out. But if you are giving away advice and giving away stuff, information with no expectation, asking nothing in return, you will build community, you'll create an audience, and you'll create fans of people that actually look up to you and actually want to look forward to hearing what you have to say about certain topics or what may be going on in your world and life. And so that really paid the biggest of dividends for me during COVID, because what happened? No one could go anywhere. And where
Right.
were they? Stuck on these things.
Right.
And if you had a voice, you were able to stay very relevant. You were able to stay very connected to people and probably drum up a lot of business, a lot of conversations, and
Sure.
have, some interesting connection there. So that's been, if you're asking there, Tim, I would say that's where I'm finding most of my clients. It's from just engaging people, having people reach out, and it's starting conversations. Those conversations lead to opportunities and long running relationships.
Yeah. Sage advice. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So on a day-to-day basis, and let's just play hypotheticals here. If I had a magic wand and I could solve any problem for you, right? Not necessarily a problem, just a day-to-day that maybe nags at you a little bit and you'd like to see different, what would that be?
I think it would probably be to just kind of counteract all the hysteria, because you try and do what you can to put out that fire, but at the end of the day, that fire is raging out there in terms of misinformation, hysterics,
Sure.
panic, bad news, and I'm fighting it with a garden hose. So I mean, you do the best you can, but if there was anything I could just kind of wave a wand and at least get the
Yeah.
market to calm down a bit. It's not even, I wouldn't even ask for lower rates, because people are like, wouldn't you want lower rates? I'm like, no. If you are a mortgage or real estate professional that can only survive in low rate environments,
Yeah.
then even though they do come up fairly frequently, you're going to always have a pretty bumpy career. And it's not even much
Yeah.
of a career. You're just kind of a fair weather professional.
Right.
But the rates and what's going on in the market shouldn't necessarily dictate how your business can run, because market share is effectively going to be the same for everyone if you do everything right. Market might be down 25%, but if your business is down 20%, you're actually doing better, relatively speaking. So these are just some things to think about. But I wouldn't wave my wand and ask for lower rates. I would just ask to try and calm the hysterics down, because it's just you can connect with a lot more people if you can just kind of get everyone to calm down, take a deep breath, recognize the opportunity and see it clearly, as opposed to being distracted by all this noise.
Yeah, for sure. That's good advice. All right, let's put our prognostication hats on. I'm not going to ask you about interest rates over the next year because you probably get that asked 10 times a day from 10 different people. But let's talk about you over the next year or the next 3 or the next 5. Where do you see, you and your business over the next year, 3 or 5?
Well, I feel like we've got something going, with our team in terms of a very strong content creation strategy. And it's something I want to take to the rest of the market, because I'm a big advocate for guys in our space, for those that do this job the right way. They're actually advisors and not salespeople. They look out for people and help them make better decisions around their mortgage debt. And so I want to take that and create more teams, help empower more individuals that offer these services like I do, by using a solid online presence strategy and creating a voice. So my next year is going to be really focused on that. We're recruiting all the time. We're trying to get more, the right people, of course, not doing it at mass, but the right kinds of people who would be a good fit, because ultimately, it doesn't matter this lender versus that lender. Every mortgage bank or entity or operation is fairly level in terms of comparison now. Some may have a little bit better products, some may have a little bit of a better technological platform, some may have a little bit of a better user experience, some might have a better CRM for those of you that sell. It's all pretty much a wash. The number one thing that matters, or the only thing that matters in going from one place to another, if you're going to make a switch in the industry, even in real estate, is, can you have a personal brand? Is it allowed? And if you can have one, which you can with us, of course, and also one that's like with no handcuffs, then you're going to have legs to be able to run with and kind of last in this race. And again, that's that race to the consumer between us and fintech. So that's what we're going to be actively doing. That's what my next year looks like. I'm very excited about it. We've got some major events planned. One coming up in 1 week with Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing in New York.
Yeah.
He's going to be out here in San Francisco with me, doing a special keynote and Q&A, and more events like that. But I'm excited about that in the future and where things are headed.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that for sure. Arjun, how can someone get in touch with you? What's the best way to find you?
Best place just to stay on theme here is on social, guys. So on Instagram, if you can find me at Arjun Mortgage, at Arjun Mortgage, ARJUN, and then the word mortgage, all lowercase, all together. I love connecting with people there on Instagram and interfacing, and it's me that answers every message, every every comment. I handle all that. I don't think anyone's too big to not be able to do that. So I try and be very genuine and interface with everyone there. So reach out to me there. I love to have conversations about the market or opportunities or hear what's going on and even just chat. So I look forward to connecting with more of you on there.
Awesome. Arjun, it's your show. Last couple of minutes, whatever you have to say, what's on your mind, heart, soul, and maybe something we didn't cover. Go ahead.
No, I think, two things. One, because we touched on Taekwondo, October is anti-bullying month. Nice. And I got into martial arts because I got bullied as a kid. And so I would just, remind people, like, if you're ever in a position to help, whether it's corporate bullying or anything you see, if you're a kid or even in high school or whatever, and you listen to this podcast, which is awesome if you do. If you're in high school and you're listening to this podcast, that you're way ahead of the game, and you're going to be a much more successful human being as a result of that. But if you see things that are happening, just speak up, stand up, and try and help other people out, because I think we all have a responsibility to do that, no matter where it is, even within our families or our communities or amongst our friends. So just wanted to say that in terms of it, being anti-bullying month and tying it back to martial arts and the whole theme there. And then just for everybody else, like I said earlier, just block out the negativity that's out there. Don't remember, there's a reason why people try and get you riled up. It's because it sells. Bad news sells. If you click on this and go down that rabbit hole, somebody else won. You're no better for it, because now you can't sleep and your brain's running 1,000,000 miles an hour and your night's messed up. Right. But there's an agenda with all of it. And I think everyone needs to kind of keep that in mind and just try and stay calm. I mean, yes, we're heading into some challenging economic times, there's no doubt. Is it going to be anything like 2008? In my opinion, not even close. Yeah. Is it still going to be tough? Absolutely it will be, but we'll get out of it. Everyone just needs to kind of tighten their belt. And I'll, remind everyone, like I do with a lot of my content, there's that recession checklist you should have just before this storm. Just kind of do an audit of your own personal finances, see where you're spending money where maybe you don't need to, see what sort of subscriptions you've got to 6 streaming services when you only really need one, or whatever. Just try and get your financial house in order and tighten your belt a little. Live within your means. Don't spend money you don't have to. Take care of your family, take care of your own health. And this will all calm down and everyone's going to be just fine on the other side of it.
Good stuff, man. Great advice and very caring advice, which I think is important. Arjun, thank you so much for being on the show. I look forward to catching up with you at a later date, 3, 6, 9 months down the road, and kind of see where you're at then.
Likewise, Tim. Thanks for having me on, brother. And I appreciate what you do for the real estate, community and investor community. Keep it up, man.
Appreciate it. Have a great week.